We're going to be getting into where I resupplied on the Colorado Trail and the best places to do that, along with the pros and cons. Be sure to stick around to the end of the video because I'll give you some things that I would have done differently, which are pretty important, as well as a great resource for all Colorado Trail hikers to have in order to make it way easier to get into town. Let's get into it. The first place that most Colorado Trail hikers resupply at, and I did as well, is Breckenridge. One of the best things about Breckenridge is the fact that there's public transportation right into the city. It's right under the bridge. I actually missed it. You have to take a left, trails to the right, you gotta take a left, and it runs very, very frequently. I believe it runs every 30 minutes or so, back and forth, so it's pretty impossible to miss. Obviously, there's a plethora of places to eat. There's really no shortage of that. And there's also a ton of hostels that you can get, hotels you can stay at for the night. A couple drawbacks to Breckenridge is the fact when you take the bus in, usually you're gonna have to rely on that out. I actually caught a bus out from Breckenridge at 9 a.m., which was super late for me, which isn't good because you actually have to go over a large pass to get down into Copper Mountain. And so what happened to me is I had a late start. I was talking to some people on trail, and I ended up getting into a storm literally right at the top of the pass. So just be aware that your thunderstorm possibilities increase. Obviously it's Breckenridge, so there's a ton of tourists there. So if you're not used to that, or if you're not really enjoying that, get used to it. The place that I stayed at in Breckenridge and the place that I shipped my resupply to was called Fireside Inn Hostel. It was a great hostel, and they actually wash your clothes. They take very good care of you. They have breakfast in the morning, they have coffee and all that stuff, and it was great. But I will say I will never stay at a hostel again. Prior to that, I had been getting zero sleep, and finally I get into the hostel, and then of course I get with a dude that snores his face off, and I didn't get any sleep again. So after hiking out of Breckenridge, I was pretty much dead to the world, could not distinguish reality from a dream state. I'm gonna throw in a little bonus place. Copper Mountain is right after Breckenridge and right before you kind of start getting a little bit more remote on the Colorado Trail. When I got caught in that storm, I actually stayed in Copper Mountain. It is harder than hell to get a hotel there. I finally got into like the last one. I had to pay an arm and a leg to get in there, but it was because I was soaking wet, I was cold. There was no places to camp around Copper. It was like 3 miles away. There was more rain coming. And so I decided to take the L and go to Copper Mountain, and it was way nicer than what my hiker trash should have been in. But that was the result of that late start out of Breckenridge. Second place that I resupplied at was Mount Princeton Hotel. And this was a very lengthy resupply. There was several days in between this. The good thing about Mount Princeton was you can get food there. It was great, and it was right off of the trail. Those two things are kind of what made me want to resupply there. They had a great lunch and breakfast. We were also able to ship new gaiters there as well. There's also a general store there as well, and everything is very close to the trail. There's a ton of people around, which actually makes it fairly easy if you need to yogi some stuff off of people. Most of them have no idea what the heck's going on because they are just there for the weekend and they are total tourists. The cons to Mount Princeton is that it's quite a ways from Breckenridge, but also there's no showers there. So basically I just kind of gave myself a nice wash in the sink, and I continued on my way, which resulted in the fact that I wouldn't shower for basically 11 days. Now, my last resupply was Lake City, and Lake City was pretty cool. It's quite far from the trailhead. However, most of the locals are familiar with CT hikers, so a hitch is very much possible. I got mine probably within 20 or so minutes, and the guy was super nice. One thing with Lake City as well is that they actually have a shuttle out from the trailhead to Lake City. So if you get there, I think by about noon, you're actually able to get that, and you can totally forgo a hitch. I stayed at the Alpine Moose Lodge. All of the other hotels were totally booked, so this is pretty much the last room that I got. The cool thing about this was that there's actually a pizza place attached to it. It was very, very accommodating. The very nice lady there actually hooked me up with moisturizer for my legs, which actually took away all of the itchiness that I was experiencing, so shout out. So the cons to this was I ended up sending my resupply to the Silver Spur Hotel. The dude there, I don't know if he really knew what was going on. It took him probably a half hour to find my resupply box, and I kind of had to keep reminding him. It was a really bizarre interaction. I think they mostly want you to stay at that hotel. However, it was booked when I tried to do it. There is some stores in Lake City. However, they don't really carry a lot of hiking products. I had a buddy that was trying to find a Sawyer squeeze because his Catadine busted, and basically he was SOL until we got to the trailhead randomly and some dude in a van gave him his extra Sawyer. Now, I mentioned a shuttle in and out of Lake City. Well, we were supposed to get on the shuttle out, however, there was miscommunication, I guess. I don't really know. We waited there for an hour, nothing happened. Finally, we got hooked up with another volunteer shuttler that took us back up to the trailhead. Now, I did stop at some other towns on the CT that were not planned, and it was because of things that were happening on trails. They were Buena Vista, which was a super cool little town. I believe you can get a hitch from Avalanche Trailhead. I actually knew someone in the area that gave me a hitch out there. Super cool little town. I went to the urgent care there. They have a really poppin' downtown. It was bigger than I had anticipated, but again, most hotels were booked and very expensive. The second place I hitched into was Salida. Super cool little town as well. I think there's some Colorado Trail shuttlers that are around that area because I got picked up by one. However, I was on the wrong side of the road, so make sure if you're trying to get into Salida, you cross the highway if you're going southbound. Anyway, I stopped in there to go to 7,000 feet to get new shoes because my Ultras blew out, and the dude was super nice there, very knowledgeable about shoes. So if you ever have a problem, I would definitely recommend going there. There was also some CBD I found at a cafe, and that's really what was kind of a game changer for my sleep. Super glad I stopped in there. Oh yeah, there is some hostels at Salida as well. Again, you already know my stance on hostels. What I would do different with my resupply, I would definitely have broken this up. I was on a very crunched time schedule. Basically, I needed to complete the trail before I got fired from work, and that required me doing it in about 22 days. My concerns were I would have a very tough time hitching into a lot of these towns. If you have time, definitely do the hitch. And the one thing that's gonna make that 100,000% easier is if you go to the Colorado Trail website and you actually ask them to email you the Colorado Trail shuttler list. This lists out a bunch of people that are volunteer, and they will take you to and from different towns. I usually leave them a little bit of a tip. Now, if you are in Colorado, if you live in Colorado, I was so jealous of this, but everybody that lived in Colorado had some family member or friend hooking them up with a resupply at different trailheads, road crossings, all this other that all of us out-of-staters did not have access to. But if you're a local, 100% I would take that avenue because you can really break up your trail into manageable chunks. Although you could also do it like a guy I met on trail that was burying resupplies at trailheads and thought he was gonna subsist off the land. So that's one way to do it, although that ceased to exist after the second day. I'm gonna leave a video up here. It's gonna be the food that I brought on the Colorado Trail, so you'll probably be interested in that if you're watching this. And please like and subscribe if you found value in this video. We'll see you for the next one. That actually ended up causing I actually caught a bug.